Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Monday morning, it's my favorite day of the week because it's Breaking the Chains Recovery Radio on brandlive.co.za. We're broadcasting live from 27 Boxes in Melville. I'd like to welcome all our listeners to the hottest show on air, and my co-host, very good friend, and my mentor through this road of addiction, road of recovery, especially Uncle Manny. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Warren. Good morning to all our viewers. I couldn't be better. We seem to be reaching a point in the show where people are talking and there's a buzz around Recovery Radio. So I'm pleased and I'm happy. And I'm no longer your mentor. I think now we're more partners on this journey of value, if you want to call it.
And you know, that's what it's all about, is bringing value. And I'd like to thank all our listeners who've tuned in for our first 5 shows. We're going on to show number 6 now, and all the awesome feedback. And today what we want to be talking about on the show, what I want to speak about, is I want to speak about this thing of recovery and about all the people who are out there that are unable to get recovery. You know, a big point of the show is that we're broadcasting, we're putting what we do out there onto the air, onto YouTube, onto our podcasts, and making the message available to everyone out there. Anyone who has a smartphone, a computer, internet access can log on. But there still lies a big gap. There lies a big gap within the treatment industry specifically, where addiction treatment is available to the elite. If you've got medical aid, you go to rehab, you get introduced to the 12 steps. And you know, I go through to the fellowships, and being a white man, I sit sometimes in the meetings and I look at the demographics and how the demographics don't match up. So there's 90% white men in the meetings, and then there's about 5% white women, and then the other 5% is people of other races and other backgrounds who sit in the meetings. And if we look at the demographics of our country, and we stop at every robot and we've got a black Nyalpe addict begging for money for drugs, and if we look at the statistics around addiction in townships and in previously disadvantaged areas, Uncle Manny, why do you believe that there is still a large discriminatory line being drawn over those who do get better and those who don't?
You know, Warren, it's something that for years, I've noticed. You know, I've been in this fellowship for over 15 years. We mustn't be oblivious to the fact that we also live in a country that's been riddled in racism and in abuse of people that weren't white. Now, I don't want to make this a black and white issue. However, there is many legacy issues that affect this country as a whole,
And that need to be addressed.
Now, your medical aids and your affluence, unfortunately, is very unbalanced in economic terms across the spectrum, you know. So sadly, with the dawn of democracy, that hasn't really changed. So we have wonderful laws, we have a constitution that is admired by the entire world, but that constitution doesn't filter down to the man right at the bottom. So we have very high levels of admiration and principles that come into our constitution, but it needs to be challenged, it needs to be tested. There also needs to be political will behind what these laws say. There needs to be a passion and a drive. That's what drives recovery, is passion for other people. So there needs to be this drive by social workers, by doctors, by psychiatrists, by anybody that comes into contact with the Nyalpe addict and the robot. Unfortunately, it's not conducive to poor people, if I want to put it that way. So besides the race issue, there's also a class issue.
And you know, if we look back to our show a few weeks ago, I think it was Nicola who was on the show, and she was saying that it's very difficult for society to invest in addicts. And you followed up to that, Uncle Manny, and said it's admirable to invest in an orphanage or into a program to provide medication to people with cancer, or but addicts are still discriminated against, and we're still viewed as bad people. And I think a big part of the change that needs to take place is society needs to become educated on the fact that we're not bad people. We're very sick people. We've got this ugly thing going on inside that, with all the good intentions in the world, we try to fill with all the wrong things. But once one gets to a point where one realizes this as an addict, as a person suffering, the options out there are very limited. I think some of the options that come in are medication. I think society, okay, it's a sickness, let us medicate the sickness. Psychology comes in, let's look back to this person's childhood. Religion comes in, and unfortunately, I'm Jewish. I have respect for all Muslim brothers out there, Christian brothers out there, Hindu brothers out there. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, people are put into religious institutions that are against their own beliefs. What are some of the mistreatments that you've noticed in your 16 years of working in this industry that just aren't working, that are being put forward but are not having the effect?
Warren, I grew up in a Christian home, so I read the Bible from a very young age. I understood the Bible, and I had my fair stunts in rehab, and what I noticed is the religious angle, people tend to be prejudiced towards it, and they believe that's the way it's going to work. Obviously, in recovery, we talk about a higher power, we talk about a God of your own understanding. And that has worked for millions and millions of people across the globe. So what I find when I met you, when you walked into Breaking the Chains, I knew this little Jewish boy's been had the Bible pushed down his throat in every 44 of the rehabs you've been to,
Either the Bible or medication.
Yeah. Now, the problem with medication is I find that there's an unethical practice by facilities where within a minute or two of the resident being booked in, he's already diagnosed with bipolar, borderline personality disorder, or schizophrenia.
While he's still high on drugs, they're diagnosing psychiatric symptoms.
No, without a doubt. And I think that's unethical and illegal, because I believe a person with a mental illness needs to be observed for at least 10 to 12 days, counseled, interviewed, assessed, medical tests run, but you got doctors that work with rehabs and automatically gets onto Rivotrol, Epilim, Ritalin, you name it, all the lens, and that messes up the individual even more, because you try now to fight a chemical with another chemical. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you, I'm ethical, so I'm not going to be putting a guy on medication, because what it does, it calms the guy down for a period. It makes him more manageable for the time that he's going to be in rehab. And then he's in rehab and he's medicated to the tilt, and then he leaves and he goes back home. And then the meds stop working. And the
he becomes tolerant to them, like the drugs.
Yes. And then the wheels fall off. And then the parents try another facility. And because we live in a society so in love with race and with class, they want to now pay more money for a better facility so that they could tell their friends how much it costs to put their child in rehab. Now, just to give you an idea, I've had magistrates, doctors, lawyers, teachers, and CEOs that have booked their children into Breaking the Chains. And we have a policy of, unless it's absolutely medically required and the proper tests and the proper assessments have been done by qualified medical staff that have no connection to the facility.
Okay.
No connection at all. We will then follow the advice. Obviously, we still follow it with caution, because I myself, I could have been diagnosed bipolar. I just got a clap from my mother when I needed to get a clap instead of a tablet. And and I managed to turn out okay. So, and I find that most addicts, when they come into recovery and they're willing to work the program, a solid program, they find on their own a need to get off the medication, and they get weaned off by doctors, and they get weaned off in the right manner. And I know a number of guys that are clean 10 years, 14 years, 12 years, that were on psychiatric meds, but today live without psychiatric meds and they clean.
And a lot of the time, for me and for a lot of people I've seen being diagnosed, so I walk into a treatment center and I've been using crystal meth, and crystal meth's a stimulant. It makes me very happy. It makes me very energetic. It mimics the symptoms of mania very well. Take the crystal meth away and the come down from that, the neurochemistry that takes place, mimics the signs of depression very well. So there's a bipolar diagnosis. A person comes in after many years of drinking alcohol and they become depressed after they stop drinking. There's a depression diagnosis. So I think the important thing as well is that these 21-day facilities where day 2 we diagnose, day 3 we medicate, and day 1 we release, I think the length of treatment being provided is also a bit of a problem, because people are leaving rehab centers and they're on a new drug, still withdrawing from the old drug. And as you said, when they relapse, it becomes a matter of let's find a more prestigious facility. A lot of these facilities, they have this new miracle drug or this new miraculous therapy that they've got these therapists in who are performing this therapy, and the person leaves and they've never found a solution to what's really going on. They've never found a spiritual solution. And the 12-step program is a really beautiful one because it's free. It costs absolutely nothing. All those steps outlined, none of them cost anything. Sure, treatment centers have to feed their patients, but true 12-step treatment centers such as Breaking the Chains, I suppose you're only really paying for your food and accommodation. The program given at Breaking the Chains is free. I know there's a lot of people who come through to the center and they're not booked in, and they come through in the day for the meetings, and there's no price that can be put on what we find in these 12 steps and the freedom that I've found. So after the break, I want to talk a bit about where people are being sent by the courts, what happens to drug addicts when they land up in the criminal justice system, and how aware are correctional services, how aware are the police, how aware are those dealing with addicts on the front line of the truth about what the solution actually is. You're listening to Breaking the Chains, Recovery Radio, and quick ad break, we're right back on.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
The unique experience. Living as One Events presents relationship talks, drama, Q&A sessions,
music, love stories, ladies and gents session, and lots more. Registration fee at 150 Rand.
happening at Bread of Life Foundation venue, Honeydew Shopping Center, Bayers Nordia Drive, corner Blueberry Drive, Unit 66, Laser Park, Honeydew. Saturday, 15 September at 11 a.m. RSVP on 072-851-8702.
Live from 27 boxes in the heart of Melville, this is brandlive.co.za.
What's up, guys? My name's JJ and I play for a band called Something October. I'm the lead singer.
What's up, girls? I'm the guitarist for the band called Something October.
We'll be playing the Rock, Jazz and Reggae Festival at the 94 Republic venue in Braamfontein. You guys don't want to miss this festival. It's going to be great. There's a lot of jazz, reggae, rock and alternative rock bands, and for us personally, this is probably one of the most diverse shows we'll be playing in 2018. We are really excited for it and we're keen to see you guys there. For more information, please check out the Rock, Jazz and Reggae Emporium Facebook page, and you can also check out our Facebook page, the Something October Facebook page, with all our details and our newly released EP album called So Much More to Say. We'll see you guys at the gig.
Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat. Harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za.
Okay, we're back and we live, you know. So Warren, we were discussing just before the break that what are the people in the front line, the policemen, the social workers, the magistrates, very interesting, correctional services. Now, I've dealt with a lot of, for argument's sake, let's take heroin addicts. Nyaupe is heroin, you know. So it's a huge problem in this country. There's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Nyaupe addicts, you know. And they get arrested for a bag or two, or for stealing, whatever they get arrested for. And they get thrown into a cell. So one of the more physical withdrawals is a heroin addict. And he needs to be treated, and he needs to be medicated so that it can ease his withdrawals. But they get left in the cell. And as we all know, I've had my fair share in and out of the cells for doing dishes there. And there's a lot of drugs available in the prisons, you know. And there's also talk of authorities being involved, because how do the drugs get into the prison if there's nobody from management or under management
who's helping bring it in,
you know? So that's the one problem. The other problem, I speak to some people, and one or two of them are magistrates, and they understand that this kid doesn't need to go to prison. But then our laws, our legislation holds them and binds them in what they can do. However, there is a diversion, but it's a process that also has a lot of parameters that
And red tape.
that need to be fulfilled. So I think addicts are thrown, and many times a guy that's stealing clothes from the line and selling and stealing cell phones and that kind of thing, they're doing it because their addiction is driving them. Now, it's very difficult. I understand that as a magistrate, when you're dealing with an overload of cases, as a policeman, where you're dealing with an overload of cases as well, in a country where our crime rate is so high that it's almost impossible to really deal with crime. And so we need to look at innovative ways, and we need to open discussions and forums and panels on cooperation and how we can move forward in dealing with, which is what is primarily an epidemic in this country. If you look at Chatsworth, for argument's sake, in KZN, and I'm Indian, so I'm, you know, you could call me a bit of a racist because I care about my race, you know, but I'm also human. And it's not just Chatsworth, but you pick a city, pick Alberton, there's a problem, and pick Zeerust, there's a problem. So from A to Z, we got a problem.
All the way down to the Jewish community in Orange Grove, there's a massive problem.
Is O part of the alphabet?
Yes.
Then pick any letter of
And
the
it's there.
alphabet,
And it's there.
You know. So what we need to be doing, I believe, is we need to stop living in denial of the problem. We also need to look at how we understand addiction, and we need to look at the methods that have worked for the last 86 years. You know, I never really had a drug of choice, but I dabbled in drugs my entire life, and what I discovered, hypnotism didn't work. However, when I got hold of the 12-step program, I can tell you, taking medication today, I think about. So if I go to a doctor and he says to me, you know, you got a flu, you need to, I say, Doc, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict. Can you please advise me on a homeopathic remedy or something that doesn't contain codeine or doesn't contain alcohol? So once we educated, we become empowered. And I think too many families, too many mothers, too many fathers are out of love, ignorant to the solutions that exist. And they get caught by unscrupulous rehab owners and wannabe pastors.
And doctors. And it goes a lot along the lines of, if there's no understanding of what the illness actually is, it's impossible to provide effective treatment. I can imagine being a magistrate, sitting and having someone appear in front of you a first time. Okay, let's give them an option of rehab. they get sent through to a religious facility, to a facility that punts medication, and that solution just doesn't work. It didn't work for me, and it is very unlikely to work for anyone who suffers from a real addiction problem. That person appears in front of the same magistrate a year later, and the correct solution hasn't been presented to this person, so the problem repeats itself. And a lot of it lies in, as you said, Uncle Manny, we get our heroin addicts in the cells and they need to be detoxed and they need to be given medication. And I think that's one part of it, the detoxing and the medication. But there's a lot of addicts who are sentenced and they still have access to drugs, and they're coming to the end of their sentences in what's called correctional services, under what's called correctional services. But no corrective measures have been taken, because while they've been sitting inside prison, they've had free access to drugs, whether or not they've been detoxed, whether or not they've gone through the detox program, they come out and they come back into the world and they're still sitting with that same problem with which they went in to this facility. And whether it's prison, look, for me, I've just kind of realized that whether they're locked up in prison or whether they're locked up in a rehab with a pastor who punts religion down their throat all day, where they're being abused, a lot of human rights abuse is taking place in treatment facilities. Parents are very desperate and families are very desperate, and all these unscrupulous doctors you spoke about and rehab owners, there's a lot of people out there who meet their own needs with that desperation, that they have plots. There's a lot of farms out in South Africa where people are being made to work and to produce produce which is being sold, and to work in small factories and workshops and work for people on their farms in order to keep them away from their family and out of society and off drugs. And a lot of abuse is taking place of drug addicts. Now, if we were doing a show on cancer patients or on HIV orphans being abused or on other marginalized members of society and the abuse, the outcry would be massive. But once again, there's a lack of understanding that addicts are very sick people and that they need to be provided with effective solutions in order to go back into society and add value. The two men sitting in studio right here were two drug addicts. I was a drug addict who took from society and who caused a lot of pain and a lot of harm, yet I add value to society today. And bringing us to the end of our show and wrapping us up, I give a shout out every week to the man sitting next to me who's added so much value to people's lives through a real solution that's absolutely free at the end of the day. And over the last 16 years, a lot of lives have been saved by just one man. So my message to our listeners today is, it says it in one of our pieces of literature, see to it that your relationship with him is right. Great events will come to pass for you and countless others. And that relationship with him is a relationship with whichever God is personal to you. And that's where I'm going to end it for today. Uncle Manny, any shout-outs from your side?
You know, instead of giving a shout-out, I'm going to say to our listeners, addicts are very problematic people. They also look down upon. And they also abuse sometimes in our own homes because they have an addiction problem, because of their habit. They get treated as less than. They get treated as scum in many systems. In many instances. So my message today is a shout out to all the listeners, is to learn to love the addict, learn to take time to understand the addiction, learn what I found in my years of working with addicts. If you treat an addict as a human being, he behaves like a human being. So we need to just find the love, and we need to find the passion. And we need to really dig deep so that we don't look down upon people that have lost their way. They say, don't tell me how you walk with the great, tell me how you sit with the broken, And that's more imperative to me than any other cause. I love to help addicts. And we're coming to you live from 27 Boxes out in Melville, the show that deals with the real issues around addiction. If you need any assistance, you can email us or WhatsApp us or even call us. Our numbers are on the website. And from us, myself and Warren, we want to wish you All those out there that are making recovery reality, I want to say big up to you. All those battling, I want to say don't give up until the miracle happens.
And one more thing from me, if you haven't got the number 083-991-5600, Breaking the Chains 2017 at
Outlook.com.
outlook.com. It's all about passion and compassion. We'll speak to you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.